Hi, this is Matt from Fabnik, and I'm going to show you how to make a wrap stitch. So the first thing we're going to do is take the piece of leather that we're going to be working with, and we're going to fold over and line up our holes, and take our needle and run it right through both pieces of leather. You can look at the previous step to make sure you're putting this in the right spot. Go ahead and pull that through, and I'm going to run this through, and I'm going to pull it so I've got an equal amount of thread on both sides of my leather. And the first thing I'm going to do now is take the thread and needle that's facing me, and I'm going to run it around the outside of the strap, and I'm going to bring it through the back hole. Just like this. Now I'm not going to run it through both thicknesses of leather. I'm only going to run it through one. There you can see that's pulled through the hole, wrapped around the outside, and you can see it's coming out underneath. So I'll pull that nice and tight. And I'm going to do the same thing with the other thread. And this one's going to wrap around and come through one thickness of leather as well. Now, one thing to keep in mind on all of these is look and see where your thread is already coming out. You can see that this one is on top of this other thread. So when I put it through my leather, I want to make sure that when I tighten it up, it stays on top. That'll make sure you've got a nice parallel stitch. So I'm going to pull it through my leather, and as I tighten it up, I want to make sure that it's looking nice and parallel. We're going to do that on all of them. Now I'm going to tighten that up, and one side's done. So what I'll do is I'll actually keep some pressure on this with my hand. That way it won't come loose. You want to make sure this stays nice and tight. So now my threads are coming through. And what I want to do is take my needle and run it through the leather, and I'm going to go outside this time. So you can see I'm going to pass through. I'm going to pull one so it's coming out the outside. Take the other one and do the same thing. Make sure we're nice and tight. And I'm going to repeat now what I did with our first stitch. So I'm going to take the first one here, I'm going to run it around the outside through that hole, and only through one piece of leather again. Pull it nice and tight. Let's take a look where my other one is coming. So that's on top. So same thing, I'm going to run that around the outside through that hole. Now you see what happened there when I pulled it through, I actually loosened up a piece of that thread. It's important to notice if you do that, because what we'll do is just pull on these guys and make sure we tighten that back up, because you don't want any thread to be loose inside there. Okay, so that looks nice and tight. So I'm going to pull this through. I was on top, so I want to make sure that I'm staying on top. And pull both of those nice and tight. And see, now we've got both sides done. The last thing to do is just tie this into a knot. What I usually do is just snip my needles off. I find this makes tying a lot easier. And we're going to tie a square knot, and the square knot's going to go up underneath our leather. And the way we do that is just two overhand knots. I'm going to go right over left. Pull that up through, get it nice and tight underneath the flap. And then I'm going to do left over right. Tighten that up. And that's it. All that's left is to cut our threads. Make sure you give enough room so that they won't come undone. And then we can just tuck the loose thread up underneath. And you can use a needle, or if you've got your spring bar tool handy, you can also use that to push some of that up underneath. And that's your wrap stitch. Thanks for watching.